Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Girls That Game, our monthly podcast where we talk about the games we love to play, our streaming experience, and everything in between. I'm AlteredCalyx. To the right is featuringFlewt, and together we are Girls That Game. Last episode, we touched on microtransactions from Dragon's Dogma 2. This episode, let's explore another topic in a similar vein. I just want to add a disclaimer that we're going to be giving opinions and how we feel about this. There's no this is the only way, this way is the right way to think. It's just, we're just going to talk. We're just going to talk. I don't want anyone getting mad or anything.
Indeed, and we'd love to hear other opinions as well.
Yes, exactly. Other opinions welcome as well. All right. So, early access. I looked up on Wikipedia and their definition or whatever says it's a funding model in the video game industry by which consumers can purchase and play a game in the various pre-release development cycles while the developer is able to use those funds to continue further development on the game. Early access to a game is typically offered when the game is in a playable state but may not be feature complete or may still have several software bugs to be found. Often these games are considered at alpha or beta releases and maybe months or years from anticipated completion. Okay, knowing that, I'm sure you already knew, but just putting it out there, this is what Wikipedia says.
Good to establish
Yeah.
baseline.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What are your
Oh,
thoughts
God.
on early access? I know this might get spicy. I don't know, but let's see.
Right? Where to even get started? I have such, to be honest, I have such positive and negative thoughts that it kind of ends up being very neutral and context based. Because we've seen some really successful uses of early access, some really great ethical uses. I know I'm a big Larian Studios stan, so you can take my enthusiasm with a pinch of salt. But I love what they've done for all the Divinity Original Sin games and BG3, in that they've worked with the community. They've gone, this is what we want to do, but let's see if that's what players like. They put out an early access and get that player feedback and ultimately make an amazing game at the end of it. I feel like they're very transparent.
Divinity Original Sin, was that an early access? I honestly don't know.
It was. So
do you remember about how long? I'm just trying to see.
I don't. I remember that was the first time. I think the Original Sin series was the first time they were without a publisher. So Original Sin 1 had to be early access because it was kickstarted. So they kind of had Kickstarters in there playing the game. And I think that was very short. I think Original Sin 2 was about 2 years.
Okay. That's not that long for early access, yeah.
It's really not that long. VG3 was a lot longer. And I know there were a bunch of issues, COVID, the war in Russia, Ukraine. Lots of things that went into big scope growth. So that one was definitely a little longer than I think is usually good, but I think they've also garnered a large amount of goodwill because they've managed previous early accesses really well.
Yeah, going by history, yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, so you have that really amazing, good community feedback, good developer communication. On the other hand, you get some genuine, absolute scams where people put out the game for purchase in a completely unfinished state and will never do anything with that game again. And that's...
they're not going to do anything because it's been like that for several years. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a scam. So it's so hard with early access. What are your thoughts in general, Calyx?
I understand the purpose of early access, right? Especially for the smaller indie games, they need money, right? They don't have AAA money backing them or whatever. So they need money. They have a passion project. They need money. So you're paying to help them fund the game. You're also, with that, if you really believe in their product, you can help them test the game out, get, early look at it, etc. And so I understand why it exists, right? I'm just not a fan of it when companies kind of abuse it. And, I know there are, like you said, there's some, successful early access games. I know of like Don't Starve Together. Hades was one,
Yes.
Fortnite, RimWorld, Baldur's Gate 3. So it works, right? And, no ill
Mm-hmm.
will, things are good, right? But then there's games that, you know, I had to look this up, but there's games that have been in early access for 10 plus years, like Project Zomboid and 7 Days to Die. And I'm like, why are you still in early access? And people are like, oh, but it's basically a finished game. Take it out of early access then. Why is it in early access? You know?
Yes. And I feel
And
like it's such a
mhm,
it's such a loophole they use where,
mhm,
either side of the argument, people say, but it's practically a finished game, just buy it. But if you bring up
mhm.
any critique, they go, oh, but it's early access, it'll be fixed. It's like,
Exactly.
but it's been out for years and they have no
Exactly.
announced release date. And that's a
So I almost feel
problem.
like it's like a safe space or a comfort zone that they just want to live in, right? Because they don't want to handle the criticism of or the backlash of like, why does it work like that? Because they can just say, well, it's an early access,
Hmm.
So, and they can say we're
Yes.
still working on it type of thing. So I think maybe it's an issue, for some people, some companies it might be that, but I don't know. I feel like if it's playable and it's pretty much fleshed out, just release it and let's go on with our life type of thing. But whatever. That's just my that's just my opinion on EA, but
Mm.
on early access games. But then I also because I have a problem, and we've talked about this too when we were playing Road Trader. Like some games are super buggy when they come out. That why am I paying full price for a game that was clearly not a finished product? And this because within week one a whole slew list of bugs are, bug changes,
Yes.
you really, in 1 week, you found just those bugs. No, they had that list like, ongoing. So
Hmm.
they knew
Hmm.
all these bugs were in play beforehand and stuff like that. So I already have a problem with paying full price with games that, come out, full release. I definitely don't want to be paying for a game that's advertised as not complete, It's like,
Yes.
so
Well, that's
yeah.
that's something, yeah, again, it's so nuanced. Like if you tell me, "Hey, this is early access. We are using player feedback to make a better game." And you're someone like the developers of Hades or the developers of Baldur's Gate 3, and you have a
Hmm.
history of doing that really well and making great games at the end of it. Great, I can get behind that. Maybe I
Hmm.
won't actually play that much because I find I get
Yes.
very burnt out and spoiled. But if
Hmm.
I'm willing to support, I can say, yes, I'm going to buy it. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper now or something like that.
Hmm.
And I know I'm going to play the game when it comes out. I'm
Yes.
educated. I understand what I'm getting into. I'm like, cool, I buy into that. But um, when you say, hey, you're going to have to buy the game in early access now, and we have no idea if it'll actually release.
Hmm.
But if you want to play, you have to buy it now. And that's just it. That grinds my gears. The other one, like you're saying, is games that come out and they're unfinished. And
Hmm.
you've been told, hey, this is your finished product. I'm like, cool, fine, wonderful, time to dive in. Um,
Hmm.
and I think Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader had early access. It certainly had beta player phases. Um, and then once it came out, I was like, okay, let's get in. But it was
Hmm.
unfinished.
Yeah.
And maybe just
Clearly
say,
unfinished. Yeah.
yeah, maybe just say, hey, this is the early access period. You can buy it. There is a full game to play, but
Hmm.
we still have content we want to add. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I think there's wiggle room for where early access is applicable and maybe even necessary with the right communication.
Yes. Um, because like I said, and I think we seem to agree, it's like I'm not opposed to paying for an early access game. I like if I can consider it like maybe investing in a game because I believe in
Hmm.
them, whatever. But I won't be playing it until it comes out of early access because to me, I'm like barely have I barely do a second playthrough of a game I do enjoy. I don't feel like playing,
Yes.
or partially playing a game and then play it again once it comes out of early access, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm behind, like you, like I'll pay for a game in early access, but that I'm not going to play it, whatever. But please, 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 please make sure it is like, pretty functional without, just I understand it can't be 100% bug free, right? But
Hmm.
come on, let it be mostly bug free and stuff like that. Like, and I don't like companies to abuse that period. Like, I don't want to badmouth Owlcat because I love their games, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a repeating behavior, right? Like, I didn't play Pathfinder Kingmaker on launch, but I did play Wrath of the Righteous and now Rogue Trader on launch. So many bugs on launch. It was just like for Wrath of the Righteous, the bugs, like it just my hubby he had to rage quit. He's like, I can't play this game. And he has tried to go back multiple times, but it's still buggy. And he's like, I can't play this. I can't play this right now. So it's been
Hmm.
like, and he still hasn't gone back to finish it, even though it was, when he played it, a really fun game.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like they shouldn't be allowed to release it and still have so many bugs too. I feel like they're just abusing the goodwill system. Like Cyberpunk 2077, when that first came out, I never played it, but
Yeah.
so of course I couldn't help but hear all the noise, right? Like, oh, how it's unplayable. I don't know if it's completely unplayable, but so many bad reviews, so many negative, thoughts and, opinions on it. But now when you look at it, it's like mostly or very positive on Steam. So it's like
Yeah.
all forgotten, right? Now it's like touted as one of the great games or whatever. It's like, but so is it okay? Is it okay for companies to release a shitty game, but it's okay because in a couple years they fix it all up and it's, it's like it's a near perfect game or something. But then it's like, then why did you release it in such a crappy state?
Yeah. And
Like
I
why did
think,
you make me pay full price for that?
yeah, and I think that is a very valid area to open up for the idea of we don't have the game in the state that we'd like it to be in. Do we release it for early access and make sure that's communicated to the public? If you want to play it now, you can. We'd appreciate the support. We're going to take your feedback
Mm-hmm.
into consideration, but it's not finished yet. Because I think that's a very
Exactly.
valid use for early access,
Mm-hmm.
especially with
Agreed.
modern games being, taking so much longer for development. Maybe you need to get that revenue flow going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Cyberpunk was such an unfortunate event of like, you had so much goodwill from Witcher 3 for, I think it was CD Projekt Red. And then they themselves oversold the game to
Mm-hmm.
such an enormous extent. And it just feels like, yes, they've now brought the game up to what they originally said it was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
almost,
Mm-hmm.
those bugs have been smoothed out. That player feedback was taken into consideration. It very much feels like those first 2+ years of release were were early access.
Early access, exactly. Like let's
Yeah.
call it what it was. Yeah, that wasn't a full, full release 1.0. That was technically early access in my opinion. So I don't like I already have a problem, like I said, paying for a game that's in early access to play, not, to pay or anything. But so like now do I have to wait a year or until a big patch comes out, to play a game because knowing like these people and I don't want to just lump them all in one thing, but I've had some bad experiences recently where it's like, okay, so they're going to release a new game, so should I actually buy it on launch and play it or
Mm-hmm.
should I wait, because I'm just going to be frustrated with it type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to, so it's just kind of like it rubs me the wrong way and I don't know what to do about it. I just know it rubs me the wrong way type of thing.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And I am still salty. We touched on 7 Days to Die as one
Mhm.
of those games that just hasn't released from early access.
Mhm.
I remember back when I was very first starting university,
Mhm.
and one of the people in my D&D group was like, oh, we should play this video game together. And I was like, okay, sure, 7 Days to Die. I'd never played a survival game before.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, it's early access, but there's some really cool stuff going on. Again, I was much younger, much less in the know on any of this stuff. Gaming was still very
Mhm.
new and exciting to me. It's still exciting,
Mhm. Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm much more educated now. So I was like, yeah, for sure. And I played it. I wasn't I didn't love it, but I played it because the other people in my D&D group were
Mhm.
playing it. And I'd be like, this is kind of a shitty game. Like, I think even beyond the survival elements, the game was just really rough.
Mhm.
Animations weren't good. Things didn't look good. There was no UI, which I know is standard survival stuff, but it was definitely early access. And I remember being like, but it was constantly that thing of like, yeah, it's early access, but it's going to get better. And then I totally forgot about the game again because I didn't really like it.
Mhm.
And then just last year, I think it was brought up in discussion, and someone was like, "Yeah, that's still an early access." I went, "What?
Yes, exactly.
You excuse me?" And apparently, it's a
Yeah.
totally different game now, and that's just kind of
Okay.
been excused by, "Oh, it's early access, and they're trying stuff." I'm
Mhm.
like, "No, they just didn't know what they were trying to make." That's
Yep,
what that was.
exactly. Mhm.
Like, and
Completely
that's
agree.
really, yeah, really scummy. I think while we're saying, there are areas for early access to be applicable, it's a very
Mhm.
tricky space to navigate as a casual consumer. Um, and I don't know how much you can relate, but like I was saying, I didn't know much about games and how even Steam worked
Mhm.
back then. And the concept of early access, I was like, sure, it'll be out in like a few months, right?
Yeah, I
you
know,
know?
right? Yeah, exactly.
just just it's so hard to navigate that when there is no one way of doing early access. And some companies
Mhm.
have accumulated that goodwill. But if you're coming in as a casual consumer and you don't know a company's history, you don't know how they do early access, it's such a tricky space where you may fall for scams. You might stumble
Yep.
into a great game that you end up loving, and then when it releases, actually the thing you loved has changed.
Mhm.
Something, any number of things along that early access journey. Um, Really difficult for a casual consumer to deal with and understand.
Exactly. Yeah, and like you said, if they're very casual and they don't know and they're just, you know, so they don't know about early access, but they wanna buy a game at full price on launch, but guess what? Technically, it's not posted as early access, but it's an early access game because of all the bugs. So I feel like
Yeah,
they've just been
that too.
bamboozled, right? It's like,
hmm That too.
yeah.
Oh, yes. And more, I feel like, yeah, like you said, games are feeling like early access even on big initial release.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to continue just because of
I
how
feel like
digital distribution works now, is that you can just go bup, 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 and it's updated.
Yeah.
Obviously, the
I don't
actual
think
update is not that
yeah.
easy, but,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
but you
Boom,
can
boom, boom,
ship it
yeah.
out to people on a regular
Mhm.
basis compared to
Yeah,
physical media where you couldn't do that.
exactly. So, yeah, I don't think early access is gonna go away. There
Mm.
are some pluses to early access. Yeah, provide feedback, to the developers so that they can improve upon it. Early access prices are usually, less than when it comes out of early access, when it's on
hmm
full release. Sometimes they give a head start, couple days head start, for, if you were part of early access type of
Oh, okay.
thing.
So, Calyx,
Oh,
how do you
uh-huh.
feel about early access that is actually just like a week early being able to play the
Are,
game?
are we talking about like Diablo 4? Was it Diablo?
I
Yeah, type of thing. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
one
Or like
I think that one
Ubisoft does it a
released a couple.
lot.
Oh, do they? Like,
hmm
so it's a complete game, but they charge you more for the game to have early access. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That's bullshit.
It's so shitty to me.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so scummy. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
mhm.
Yeah, so there's all these things with early access, but there's also you can get like digital freebies, whether it's a Discord title or some, cosmetic, gear in game or something like that. So I mean, there are some perks to getting things in early access. Like I said, I think like the most recent one I bought that was in early access was Last Epoch, but that's because I knew I was gonna
Oh,
play it, but
hmm
I knew the
hmm
price was gonna go up, right? So I was like, okay, I'll just buy it when it
mm,
was in early access. I did not play it. I didn't know anything about it, but it also had some digital freebies. So I was like, okay, I'll just pay early to get, those kind of benefits and stuff. But other than that, I'm not a fan of early access for when companies abuse it and it's just sitting in there several years. I'm like, I don't. To me, I just feel like it just seems a little off. Like, why is it there? Why is it early access for several years? Like, early access means like it's playable, it's not finished, but it's like, on the cusp of being finished, just need to polish it up. But some people, some companies, I feel, developers or whatever, are taking it very loosely, and I don't know. It's yeah,
So,
it's
so
a
there was actually a lot of anger over BG3's early access and how long it went on. What were
mm.
your thoughts on that?
I completely ignored it because I was like,
Hmm.
I knew I was gonna play BG3 100%, right? But I was like, I did not care how long it was in early access at the time because I was just like, for that one, I just kind of um assumed it was just part of the development stuff. I was just like, people are like, oh, it's in early access. I was like, okay, that's nice. I don't really care. It's like
Right.
I'm not gonna
Hmm.
play it.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna ruin the wow factor of going through, playing whatever chapters or whatever there is, and then, because I want the whole shebang, like, right when I start to play. I don't want it to be like, okay, I started and then I have to finish it up later on type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know this, so since I was kind of ignorant of BG3's early access, I don't actually know how long it was when I looked online. And so I was just going by online search. I didn't really dig too deep, but it said October 2020 to August 2023. So that seems like just 3 years, but I feel like it's a lot longer the way you're talking about.
I
Was
maybe
it?
maybe I should check.
No, I didn't do a thorough search, so I'm just, but hubby was saying, um, he was saying the early access for BG3 was basically advertisement for it, like, because I think he was insinuating that it was basically a done game, so they just put into early access to showcase it and get the hype train going for it, I guess, type of thing. But
No. Um,
no,
no. I guess it was only 3 years. For some reason, it felt so much longer. Maybe because their previous
I think
early
the
accesses had been
production of
shorter.
it, I think the production of it was forever. I
Six
think
years in
maybe,
development.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I think, but I feel like you were going someplace with this, so I want to hear like
Oh,
what you were. Yeah.
well, yeah. That's where I'm very conflicted because of my experience with previous Larian titles and the way they
Mm-hmm.
handled early access, I was all on board for what they did with
Mm-hmm.
BG3.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long period of early access, 3 years. I remember in 2020 being so excited because I'd been following like their announcements and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I bought the early access, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll dip my toes in, and then it was like just longer and longer and longer and longer for the game to
Were they
come out.
delaying it? Like I said, I remained ignorant of it,
Well,
but did they keep delaying it, or what was
they
happening?
never released a release date,
Mm-hmm.
and Larian has always been like this. They've said we will release it when we're happy with it,
Okay.
and we don't want to be beholden to like
Yeah.
a bad release schedule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, what they did was they took what they wanted from Act 1, and this is
Mm-hmm.
the same that they did with original Sin 1, and they put that into early access. And what
Okay.
they end up doing is that things get pretty dramatically changed based on player feedback, data, all sorts of stuff gets
Mm-hmm.
pretty dramatically changed. Like the reaction system was never a thing for a long time in early access. Um,
What's the
so,
reaction system? I'm
you
like drawing a
know,
blank.
yeah, so when you can take an attack of opportunity and the enemy starts running away,
Oh,
the
okay.
reaction pop up comes up being
Okay.
like, do you want to take
Yes.
this? Um,
Gotcha. Yep. I remember
that
now.
just
Yes.
was not a thing for a very long time. It was clearly a
Mm-hmm.
design decision they wanted to keep. They didn't want that interruption to the gameplay, but
Mm-hmm.
there was such high player demand that it got added in eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the very beginning of early access was a lot more like Divinity Original Sin 2 with a lot of environmental floor effects going on.
Yep.
And a lot of people were very unhappy about how that worked as well. So
Really? Okay.
it's massively tuned down to almost nothing in
Oh.
full release. Yeah, lots of little things and big things mechanically, story-wise, that they get a lot of player feedback and data on. And that really dramatically improves and kind of sets the course for the game going forward. So that's how they do it. That's how they did DOS 2. Yeah, really cool stuff. But if I hadn't been part of DOS 2's early access, and like DOS 2 is one of my all-time favorite games.
Yes, it's good.
If I didn't have that kind of knowledge and background, and I saw a different company doing this kind of stuff, I would also be amongst those people being like, really? I'm paying, it was less than release, but it was still, you know, almost full price to beta test your game, you know.
Exactly.
With no release date in sight. You know, that's the kind of stuff you have to look out for usually.
Exactly.
And I knew that this was I know that, and hopefully that continues going forward, a very reliable and trustworthy company. But that's what we thought with CD Projekt Red. And then, you know, Cyberpunk comes out.
Yeah,
so it's such a difficult minefield to navigate. Laren has
they
my
were
trust
lucky too
for now, but yeah.
The Cyberpunk 2077 people, they were lucky because they also released the anime. Like,
oh, that's
my gosh, I love that anime. So I never played Cyberpunk, but I love the anime. I was bawling, I was crying. I watched it a couple times. Like, yeah, it was so good, right? So I mean, I heard because people, you know, fell in love or they liked that, you know, the anime and stuff. They regarnered some goodwill, you know, for the game. There was a resurgence in the game, and maybe by that time, I don't know the timing, but probably by that time, you know, a lot of the bug fixes, you know, were, you know, done and changed or whatever. So maybe it was a better game by then. But I heard like the anime coming out was good timing because it helped a resurgence for it,
that
and you know,
makes a lot of sense.
positive reviews, you know, type of thing. So
yeah,
good on them, I guess. I mean, I'm not gonna play it still, but that's because I'm not really into Cyberpunk. Not because I hate them or anything. I hate the company, but
no, I feel that. Are there any early access games that you know you're going to buy anyway, despite all of this?
Yes, I'm trying to think of any early access game. I mean, I'm not opposed. Like I said, I'm not opposed to paying for early access games. I just won't play them. Like,
Play them.
I kind of, I'm a little bit. V Rising is coming out full release 1.0 May 8th.
Ooh.
And it's in early access right now, but here's the thing, I missed out on the early access pricing. It was
no.
Yeah, it was for US dollars, it was $19.99 until April 5th, and I didn't know about it until like a day or two afterwards. So now it's up to $34.99, and I'm like, that's fine. I have King Arthur Legion 9 to play like the next day. It releases on May 9th. So I'm gonna play King Arthur, and I'll just wait for V Rising to go on sale. Maybe if I can hold out. I don't know. So I'm not too heartbroken over that, but yeah, like I said, if there's a game that I really want to play, I'm not opposed to paying early access pricing. I'm not a fan of paying them and beta testing for them. Like I don't know, something about that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, I'm paying to beta test. Yeah, I don't know.
I can totally understand that. And I think for some people that's a real value proposition. They go, I want to test this game out. I want to give my feedback. For people like you or me, like I get super burnt out. I don't want to play the game and then have to replay and not have that initial good experience.
Exactly. Like, and I understand, you know, people want to support their favorite game. I'm not saying, you know, don't do early access, you know, don't fall for it. No, it's, you know, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. That's just something I don't want to play the early access game. I'll pay for it if I really feel like, you know, I know this is going to be a good game. I've been looking forward to it and I'm all on board. but I'm guaranteed I'm not gonna be playing it because, like I said, yeah, I don't wanna partially play a game and then replay it,
Mhm.
when it's fully out. But are there any early access games you're looking forward to?
Honestly, whatever Larian Studios does next, I'll probably be there.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, they've got such the
I'll be
goodwill.
there.
Like,
Mhm,
I'll be
mhm.
there too. Exactly. Exactly.
Hades 2, I'll probably be trying to get in on that as well.
Mm,
Even though I struggled with Hades, I just love what that studio does.
hmm.
I've loved some of their other games as well. I think they're really, really cool. So, yeah, yeah, there are some that I'll
Gotcha.
definitely be there for. To be fair, with a little bit of skepticism, but
Yes.
I'm pretty
Healthy
on board for
skepticism.
those.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. The only other game that's on my list that I'm looking forward to, but it's already out now, is the RimWorld Anomaly that released a couple days ago, April 11th.
Ooh. Yeah.
So I might play that after King Arthur. I have to go back to basics though. Like, I played the base game and it was a little bit overwhelming. So I think I don't know. I don't know if the deal is I need to maybe play around with it off stream. It's a I love the game. I love those building type of games and the colony games, but if it gets too overwhelming, it doesn't make for a fun stream because I'm just stressed out. I'm
Mhm,
not
mhm.
talking, stuff. So I just need to get myself comfortable with it, and then maybe I can stream it. But yeah, have you ever played
Awesome.
any of the Rim Worlds?
I haven't. As much as I love tactics and strategies, those
Mhm.
ones just seem very overwhelming to me.
Gotcha.
So I'll have
Alrighty.
to see if I catch you on stream with it at all.
Yeah, it might be a while because I still have a King Arthur,
Yeah,
King Arthur to
busy
work with.
period
So
coming up for you then.
yeah, same. I
Hmm.
think you too, right? You have a couple that are like back to back, but I know you said from last episode that one of them you're probably not going to play on launch. I
Mm,
forget which one.
yeah, that's Aeuden Chronicles coming out in about a week. So by the time this is released, it'll be out.
Mhm.
Still quite skeptical, actually. The closer it gets to release, the more skeptical I am. So it'll be interesting to see if I do pick that up next time.
Alrighty. I think we're all done then. Let's
Mhm.
wrap it up. Flute, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at featuringFlewt. I'm also on the TikToks at ftflute. So come over and check it out.
Excellent. Will do. I'm AlteredCalyx. You can find me Twitch, YouTube, Twitter/X under AlteredCalyx. We're also on Spotify if you care to just listen to it and not see our lovely faces.
You'd be
But
missing out.
yes, exactly. You're missing out. That's it for us. That's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in for episode 4 of Girls That Game, and see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.